This is the Modfree Mini from InWin, a case which allows you to have a small and slim PC in the comfort of your office or your living space. It is a pretty cool concept, but it does raise my eyebrows. So I've got a few PC parts here. I'm going to build a PC and walk you through this case at the same time. Let's go. Okay, first things first, the case is already out of the box, but I have to show you what else you can find inside the packaging. So these are the foam that holds the case together, and there's a bag which holds all of the accessories and screws. And this is the base plate to enable the case to look like a showpiece. I know what you're thinking. Where is the manual? Well, there's none. You have to download it from the Google Store or Apple Store. But that said, the app is really good actually. It's very detailed, interactive, and gives you step-by-step instructions on how to set up this case. But if you don't like that, just watch my video and I'll do my best to explain to you how this case works. Anyway, this is specifically the Modfree Mini 2, part of InWin's Modfree line of cases. There are also full and mid towers, so you can also check those out. And besides this Mod 2, there's also a Mod 3. Both are mini-itx towers, but the Mod 3 is taller. The case does have some weight to it, but it is very strong and stays well on its own without the base. And I think this is real wood. I'm not like a connoisseur of wood, but this feels and smells like real wood, like those you can find in a furniture store. The brown and black, together with the real wood grills, make the case look and feel very premium. And it also does cost a premium. More on that later. At the front, there's a big, nice start button, together with 2 Type A and 1 Type C ports, and 1 audio mic combo jack. I like the aesthetics of this case, and it does give you a preview of what you may find inside the case. So let's first begin by removing the panels. You can see that the panels come off pretty nicely because of all the notches and hooks inside the case. And there are mesh filters on both the front and back which you can remove, which are also good to keep the dust away from the insides of this case. Without the panels, as I mentioned, it is just a simple metal frame and a standard case to keep all the PC parts together. At the top, this is where your mini-itx motherboard goes, and at the bottom, you can put up to a full-size ATX power supply. There's also a space at the back to install a 2.5-inch SSD, so I have prepared this Gigabyte B550i Pro AX motherboard with a Ryzen 5 5650G and 16 gigs of DDR4 memory. Beep! Interrupt number 1. The APU I'm using is a 5600G and not a 5650G, so apologies if I keep saying 5650G in the rest of the video. Okay, so I've also plugged in the I/O. The front audio is here, USB 3, front panel. As this board doesn't have the Type-C, I didn't use the Type-C, but if you have one, remember to plug this guy in. Not going to bother about the cable management for this guy because kind of lazy right here. Okay, one thing here about your CPU cooling. There is not enough clearance to mount your full-size ATX cooler, and there is no spot to mount an AIO anywhere, at least for this case. The only CPU cooler you can use is a low-profile one such as the Noctua NH-L9i. And since I don't have that cooler or any other low-profile cooler, I have this Rift Stealth stock cooler pre-installed on this board. I believe there should be enough clearance for the bigger Rift Spire stock cooler. And this also explains why I'm using a Ryzen APU or a Pro CPU for that matter, and not something like a 7700X, 9600X or 9700X. A 7600 non-X should be okay, but I'll also talk about why I did not use that CPU later in the video. Okay, next, this Seasonic 850-watt power supply. You can see a power supply bracket here, this one. You can either install the power supply to the bracket or you can install the bracket to the power supply. I prefer to remove the bracket to install the power supply because it's a lot easier. So let's do that. Okay, so the first thing you need to do is remove the screws over here, front and back. Now you mount the bracket onto the power supply. You can do it this way. So I also put in all the power supply cables. Lucky for me, I don't need GPU PCI power cables. I will talk about it why later. So the 24 pin is here, 8 pin C power is over here. This one was a lot harder to get in because of where it's located. It's so tight at the corner, so you have to have pretty mobile hands and fingers to get those two to go in. But it worked out in the end. I've also cable managed a bit to make it look a bit more presentable. And since we are at the back, let's also install a 2.5 inch SSD over here. You have to remove this screw here to release the tray for the hard drive. Okay, so after kind of a tough battle, I managed to squeeze in the 2.5 inch drive into the back here. You can see that not much space to squeeze in your SATA cable as well as SATA power cable for the power supply. So you can see it's pretty tight here. I wanted to use a right angle one, but somehow I can't seem to fit into the drive, so I have to use a flat one. Let's see whether we can close the panel. Place it on top. Okay, seems like tight. And let's put back the rest of the panels. Okay, we also have to mount the base to complete the look. So let's first remove the rear panel. And you take the base plate. See these two screws here? That's where you align those things. It's quite tight actually. And you take your base plate screw and you screw it into the bottom here. And you put your panel back. This is pretty much it. End of video. Okay, to be more specific, this is pretty much it, at least for this PC case. If you wanted more customization and ways to install more PC parts, you will have to expand this case. Which in this case, no pun intended, is either buying 1 or 2 more of these Modfree 2 cases, or you can venture into the bigger Mod 3 case. I guess you can have 3 of these Mod 2 cases, or 3 of these Mod 3 cases, or mix and match between the 2 sizes. There are also different designs for both the Mod 2 and Mod 3, such as a mesh front and I/O area, or the more industrial looking white Monarch. Okay, so what kind of specific customizations you can actually have? And this part, you will have to imagine it as I guide you along on how this case may actually look like. For a start, if you wanted more cooling, aka more fans, you will either have to upgrade to the Mod 3 because that one has a tray in the center for a 120mm fan. InWin did pass me one of the fans, but I can't use it in this case because this Mod 2 doesn't have a place to mount a side fan. The only cooling you can have is your CPU cooler and perhaps the one for your power supply. But at least for this build, it should not be very hot because it is a 5650G and there is no GPU. Interrupt number 2, I don't have an infrared thermometer to show you what's the actual temperature inside this build. But I can tell you that the 5600G stayed relatively okayish cooled with the Rave style stock cooler. It ran at 48 plus with a max of 60 on idle. But if you do push this PC with something like Cinebench R23, the Rave style stock cooler is definitely not enough. An average of 84 to 90 degrees C with a max of 94, you will need something better than a Rave style stock cooler. But anyway, don't worry, I don't think you'll ever push this PC to run that hard. If you're just doing word processing or something not so taxing, it should stay within the healthy operating range. Back to the main. Yes, there is no way to install a graphics card if you plan to use this Mod 2 as a PC. The way to do it is to use another Mod 2 or Mod 3 without any tray and then install your GPU on it. You also need a PCIe riser cable to connect the graphics card to the motherboard inside this case. The add-on Mod 2 or Mod 3 now acts like an external dock for your PC. That also explains why I am using an APU. Besides the low heat production, the 5650G has better onboard graphics than the one on something like the more mainstream 7700X or 9600X. Of course, a newer alternative would be to use the Ryzen Pro 8000 CPUs or any of the Intel CPUs with onboard graphics. And also talking about heat production, I have to go back to the CPU cooling. If you wanted to use something like a 7700X or any of the Intel 14th Gen CPUs, I would definitely recommend a 240mm AIO or even a 360mm AIO. And that's also where a second expansion unit comes in. You can mount a 240mm AIO on another Mod 2 or up to a 360mm on a Mod 3. So I see three ways to go about this. You can either use the GPU as an intake and AIO as an exhaust, or the AIO as an intake and the GPU as an exhaust. Or the more traditional way, have three 120mm fans at the front as intake and the GPU as exhaust with a CPU air cooler. But of course, all of these customizations come at a heavy cost. I do not have the official Singapore prices, but based on the American eStore, this base steamer Mod 2 costs $209 US. Another two expansion Mod 2 units will cost an additional $418. That's a total of $627 US to accommodate a GPU and an AIO. I'm not sure you can have up to 3 Mod 3s stacked together, but if you can, that's another $30 US for 360mm AIO and up to something like an ROG Strix RTX 4090. And that's not the end. You can also have storage server racks with multiple hard disk drives, though I don't think you have more than 3 Mod 3 units on the base. If you don't care about using the base, just imagine how many of these PC cases you will be able to stack next to each other. But of course, this goes back to the issue of the high price tag, and I don't think it'll look very nice if you have so many of these stacked together on your desk. It doesn't really suit the clean office work environment. But as a standalone PC, it will make for a nice showpiece. It's also easy to build in. It does suit an office or minimalist work environment because an APU or CPU with an iGPU is good enough for office. It is relatively quiet. I say relatively because I do hear the wave style fan clearly from this case even on idle. I am actually hearing right now. But of course, your experience will vary if you use a different cooler. So write down in the comments what cooler do you think will work for this case. So that said, do consider this if you want to get this PC built for an office work environment. And also, do not forget about the price tag because you have to fork out at least $200 US for this case. So I guess this is pretty much what I can show you for this Mod 2 case. Hopefully, InWin will be able to pass me more of the expansion units so that I can show you a more complete build. Like if you like this video, if you are into tall SFF builds, do also check out the Cooler Master Encore Max which I have done. So catch you in the next video.